is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth, a great day when the noble government of Egypt has finally made some arrest warrants, issued arrest warrants for some of the people connected with the attack on our embassy. The good news is, yep, they've finally done something legally to crack down. The bad news is they're not cracking down on any of the people who attacked our embassy. They've issued arrest warrants for Terry Jones, the nutty pastor who promoted the anti-Islamic film, and for Nakuli Basuli Nakula, who made the film, and for a bunch of other Americans who are not likely to be visiting Egypt anytime soon. We'll be speaking about that with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. He's leading what to me is a courageous filibuster right now to cut off foreign aid to Egypt, Libya, and Pakistan unless they provide more respect for American interests. I happen to think that Senator Paul is right on this, but we'll be speaking to him coming right up. 21 minutes after the hour on the Michael Medved Show, and with Congress back in session, we're joined by one of the most conscientious members of either House of Congress. That would be Rand Paul, the Republican of Kentucky. Meanwhile, it's easy to save 15% or even more on car insurance with Geico. You just go to geico.com, or you can call 1-800-947-AUTO. The only hard part is figuring out which way is even easier. Senator Paul, with Congress back in session right before everybody goes home for the important business of running for re-election, you guys getting a whole lot done?
Well, I'm in the process of leading a filibuster, and I'm stopping all legislation as best I can to draw attention to the plight of Dr. Shaquille Afridi, who's the doctor who helped us with information to get bin Laden. It's now come out that he's been tortured by the Pakistani security agency and now is put in prison for life. And I don't think that's the way an ally should act. If you want our money and you want to be an ally to America, you should act like an ally to America.
Well, I've seen your statement on this, Senator, and basically what you're asking for is an up or down vote to authorize this $4 billion of taxpayer money. That's $4,000 million that goes every year to Egypt, Libya, and Pakistan.
And I've been asking for it for about 6 weeks on Pakistan, but recently the events in Libya and Egypt have concerned me that one of the basic functions that a friend or an ally or even a neutral nation does, any civilized nation provides protection for your embassy when you have it in their country. And there's absolutely no excuse for Egypt. Egypt's gotten $60 billion over the last 30 years. They have a significant police force. They have a significant army. And the reports were that the streets were deserted when the marauders came and burned our flag and put an al-Qaeda flag or Islamist flag above our embassy in Egypt. It's just lucky that no one was killed, but there seemed to have been no protection by the host country. That's inexcusable, and I say not one penny more to Egypt unless they prove to us and then is certified and voted on by Congress that they are going to protect our embassy.
Senator Paul, you may have heard that the Egyptian general prosecutor did issue arrest warrants yesterday. Did you hear about this?
Well, I think in the week since this has gone on, or in the several days since this has gone on, now they're beginning to see some signs of those stepping up in Egypt.
No, wait, this is worse than you think, Senator. They issued arrest warrants for Americans. They want to arrest Terry Jones, the pastor who promoted that Muhammad film, and 6 other Christians, Coptic Christians, who were associated with the film. That's who they want to arrest.
Yeah, no, I thought you were talking about arresting some of the protesters and perpetrators.
I wish.
Yeah, no, that's a sign that they're going in the wrong direction. The other thing was when President Morsi came out and spoke about the movie for 24 hours without mentioning the violence and unrest towards our embassy. And the thing is I don't condone the movie. I have not seen the movie, but I'm part of the American government. We didn't sponsor this movie, and it's really beside the point. The whole point of the matter is whether you're unhappy or not, in a civilized world, the host country defends the embassy, and that's one of the, I think, prerequisites to having an embassy in a country.
And speaking of not sponsoring the movie, Senator Paul, one of the other issues where I salute your courage and clarity, you would be opposed to the United States government actually using taxpayer money to sponsor any movie, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't want us doing Christian propaganda against any other religion. And the interesting thing is that many of these states in the Middle East, once upon a time, they considered people of the book, which were Jews, Christians, and Muslims, to have a certain amount of protection. Now, Muslims got a greater degree of protection in some countries, but really all three major monotheistic religions were given some degree historically of protection. And this is a really confusing time over there, and I am concerned about what's going on. But I'm not in favor of our state government doing anything, and we should be neutral with regard to religion.
Oh, and it's not just religion. What I was referring to, Senator Paul, is that we spend it's close to $1 billion a year total on things like public television and the National Endowment for the Arts, where we produce forms of entertainment, where the government tells us what's good entertainment and what's not. You don't
right.
support
I'm not
that,
in favor of I'm not in favor of the government being involved in arts or movies of any sort, and that way you don't end up having problems like this. But I think what is being lost on a lot of those in the Middle East, and I don't know how much of our news is penetrating to them, I think they get sort of a distorted view of what our news is that this movie in no way had anything to do with our government. And but the bottom line is there are separate issues. One is expression, and we tolerate a lot of expression, even bad and distasteful expression in our country. But really the separate issue that has nothing to do with the freedom of expression and really shouldn't even be voiced until we get through the primary issue is that's of the safety of our diplomats and our embassy in these countries.
Senator Paul, President Obama has taken a very, very big hit in the polling regarding approval for his foreign policy. Do you think that he handled this latest crisis in the Middle East effectively?
Well, I don't. Probably not, but I don't think he deserves the blame. I don't want to be one of those who say, the killing of the ambassador is President Obama's fault. I don't say that at all. But I do say the issue of our aid being contingent upon behavior, good behavior by our allies, is a good issue, and neither side is really addressing this. I'm pushing this hard and may get a vote today because of my filibuster, but the Republicans have been somewhat divided on whether or not our aid should be contingent on good behavior. And they shouldn't be, because this is an issue that I can go into any crowd in America. I can go into the Democrat convention and give a speech on why we shouldn't give money to our enemies, and I guarantee I'll get a standing ovation. If Governor Romney understood this issue and understood where the public was on this issue, if you poll this issue, should we give money to our enemies or give money to people who are acting like our enemies or people who are torturing people who are our friends, like Pakistan, I think you'd see that 90% of the Americans don't think we should be sending good money after bad there.
You're back in Washington, and this is going to be the last session before the election. Nothing is happening regarding the fiscal cliff or the ongoing economic collapse, is it?
Not in this session. In the lame duck session, what will happen is tax rates will go up significantly if we don't do anything. And what I would advise people, Democrats in particular, who are courting this disaster and say, we want to cross the fiscal cliff to see what you guys will do, they need to read about the Great Depression. In the Great Depression, we raised taxes in 1932, 1933, 1934, 1936. For 5 years in a row, we raised taxes, and we got worse and worse. The Depression got worse. Most economists agree raising taxes in a recession is bad, whether it's on rich people, middle-class people, or poor people. When you take money out of the private sector, it harms the private sector.
There's Senator Rand Paul, junior senator from the state of Kentucky, Republican. When we come back in just a moment, we'll speak for a moment about presidential politics and all of the controversy regarding the tape, which we now know was months old. It was an old tape. It had been kicking around YouTube of Governor Romney worrying, as I think a lot of us are worried, about Americans who don't really participate in shouldering responsibilities for government. We'll talk about that with Senator Rand Paul coming up.
From politics to pop culture.
At blinds.com. And speaking about opportunities, we have a great opportunity to continue conversation with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Senator, you've been out campaigning for your fellow Republicans across the country, including Governor Romney, our party's presidential nominee. Do you share some of his concern that we're in a situation where almost half of Americans do not pay into the income tax system, and meanwhile, a third of American households get some form of welfare check?
Well, I think it was Margaret Thatcher who wrote that the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. It's the problem with big government is that we have a dwindling tax base because we keep excluding people from paying taxes, but we've made the tax code much more progressive. And this is one of the things that's lost on many Democrats. The Bush tax cuts, while they did lower rates, made the tax code more progressive because they dropped people off the bottom. And so many more people don't pay taxes after the Bush tax cut. And you can argue that that's good to help those people get ahead, and I'm not saying it's not, but there's also an argument that everybody should pay a little bit so you feel like that when taxes are going up or down or government spending is going up or down, that it is coming out of your pocket and that you are participating. There is a problem if we get to the point where the vast majority are receiving from government and a minority are paying those taxes. We essentially are there now. The top 1% of wage earners pay 40% of the income tax. The top 10% pay 70% of the income tax. So that's the problem with allowing only taxes to go up on the wealthy. Really, that's where all the taxes are being paid. So it will be an enormous tax increase on the private sector if we allow even just a tax on the higher wage earners.
If you were advising Governor Romney directly on this, what should he say for all those people who are attacking him saying, oh, Governor, you're writing off half of America?
I think the message has to be that the American dream is for all. It's for those who are succeeding now, but it's really for the next generation who haven't had a chance yet. There could be somebody on welfare who becomes the next Bill Gates. That's the wonder of our country, is you can go from unemployment to having a great idea and hard work and being successful. There are many successful businessmen that I know, and women, who were bankrupt several times, not because of their own fault. They just tried hard and they weren't successful in a business, but they kept plowing on and then were successful. So it's a matter of translating the statistics, which are a problem where we have a dwindling tax base, but transmitting that in and transferring that into an optimistic message about how America is a great country because the poorest among us can become the richest among us just simply through hard work and through merit.
Senator Paul, are you going out campaigning for some Republicans for the U.S. Senate to try to help gain control of the U.S. Senate, winning the 4 seats we need?
Yes, I went down and helped Ted Cruz in the primary. He may not need my help so much after the primary. Richard Murdoch's race is fairly close in Indiana, and I have an interest in making sure that Richard Murdoch wins. And so there will be some I'm going out. We've been in discussion with the Romney campaign about trying to go to Ohio next week to campaign with Governor Romney, and I'm hoping that will work out.
Well, it's good for you. I do know that there are real opportunities in this election. What would you say to people who say there's no difference between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama?
Well, I think there's a huge difference in the way the business community will be treated in this country. Right now we have a president who I think is the most anti-business president we've ever had. Every day new regulations come out that are really putting the kibosh on any kind of growth in our economy. People say regulations are costing over $1 trillion a year now, close to $2 trillion, and that this great burden is keeping us from going forward. Governor Romney, I think, understands business. He will be the appointees to the EPA as well as all these different agencies. I think will be a reasonable person who understands that, yes, we have to have some regulations, but they need to be balanced with jobs and job growth. Right now we've gone to an extreme position on the left, which is they don't care about my entire state. I'm from Kentucky, and we produce coal. They have literally said they want to bankrupt our industry. So that's sort of a zealous position that is way outside the mainstream. But I think Governor Romney will be much more in tune with allowing businesses to be to go forward and let the economy grow. Do I agree with him on every issue? No, but I tell people, look, I don't agree with my wife on every issue either. So, but the preponderance of positions that Governor Romney will take, and I will still be here. I will be, if Governor Romney wins, I will still be here saying to even to Republicans, we must produce a budget that balances in a finite period of time.
That's Senator Rand Paul, and keep up all the great work. We'll be right back.
The Michael Medved Show. MichaelMedved.com.